Ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues, good day and welcome to the international conference, Ukraine and the World, Resisting Aggression, Defeating Authoritarianism. This conference is organized by Civil Center for Freedom of North Macedonia, Media Dialogue and Youth for Media from Germany, and the New European People's Forum International Organization based in Brussels. And these are the founding members of the Defending Democracy Initiative, which is an international initiative that started in December at the Defending Democracy and Human Rights Conference held in Skopje. We started organizing this conference before the shocking statements issued by the US leadership, and we saw an unprecedented and inexcusable moment that can embolden the authoritarianism and will undermine Ukraine's fight for survival. I also would like to mention that very expectedly, our media platform was under severe cyber attack this morning. This is not new, and we carried on for the time that we were fighting off the cyber attack. We were functioning through social media, and I believe that we now will have attention of the audience, both international and domestic. However, after all what happened globally, yet this is, exactly why we are here today. And I believe that because silence and hesitation are no longer an option for anybody, it has never been, but now it's really a high time to abandon silence and hesitation. And we have to say that every delay, every excuse, every act of cowardice in the face of the Russian terror carries out a very grim cost. It's paid in Ukrainian lives. Russia's war against Ukraine, I have to say, didn't start in 2022. It started in 2014 with the illegal annexation of Crimea and the war in Donbass. For more than a decade now, more precisely 11 years and a few days, Ukraine has been resisting the Kremlin's imperial aggression. And for 3 years, Ukraine has been fighting off a full-scale invasion, a war Putin thought or promised will take 3 days to conduct, at least 3 days to capture Kyiv and another couple of weeks, up to 3 weeks, to capture whole of Ukraine. Well, here we are, 3 years after, we see Ukraine still standing, still fighting, still proving that democracy, freedom, and national dignity cannot be crushed by tanks or terror. But let's be clear, this isn't just war, it's also terrorism, because Russia is deliberately targeting civilian missiles, raining down on homes, schools, hospitals. Drones sent to strike apartment buildings in the middle of the night. Maternity wards were turned into rubble. Children's playgrounds shredded to cluster bombs, and mass graves filled with innocent people who were tortured and executed just for being Ukrainian. And then there's Russia's winter terror. Systematic attacks on energy infrastructure, power stations, heating plants, water supplies, ensuring that if Ukrainians don't die from explosions, they freeze to death in the dark. A medieval siege by modern means, designed not to conquer only, but to erase an entire nation. This is not collateral damage. This is strategy. This is genocide. And yet, Putin is not only waging war in Ukraine. His war extends far beyond the front lines. His weapons include disinformation, propaganda, and hybrid warfare tactics aimed directly at the democratic West and the democratic part of the world in general. He manipulates elections, funds extremist movements, and floods the public space with lies. He buys politicians and weakens institutions. This war doesn't stop at Ukraine's borders or Ukraine's front lines. It reaches Washington, Berlin, Brussels, London, Skopje, Belgrade, and beyond. And how does the West respond? Well, with hesitation, with delays, with statements like, "We are deeply concerned, we are worried." Well, appeasement didn't work in the past, it will not work now, it will not work in the future. Every compromise with Putin is a betrayal. It's a betrayal of justice, it's a betrayal of Ukraine, and a betrayal of the very principles that hold the free world together, the principles of humanity. The choice now is simple: stand with Ukraine until victory, or prepare for a world where dictators redraw borders as they wish, by force, and the democracy in such a world will be nothing more than a memory, just a memory. History has already warned us many times. This time we must listen. That is why we call this conference. We invited you, ladies and gentlemen, prominent people whom we know already from previous events, and some are new to us, to this platform at least. And I hope, we as organizers, we hope that you will express your thoughts and ideas and provide some recommendations or strategic messages that will help us and the world listen and take steps in accordance to what I just said and what we're declaring for a very long time now, all together, the people in this forum and many more outside this forum. I'd like to invite now two gentlemen who are also in the agenda as speakers to address this distinguished forum, this distinguished gathering, and so to open this conference. First, I would like to invite Dr. Wolfgang Ressmann, who is the president of Media Dialogue and of the Youth for Media organizations from Germany, and also our long-standing partner and supporter, as well as one of the founding members of the Defending Democracy Initiative. Please, Wolfgang, take the electronic, the online floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Xavier, for your words and your interpretation and your analysis of the situation in Ukraine since the war started 3 years ago. Now the fourth year beginning and the whole surrounding of the political world in Europe and the world is changing, not based on this war, but focused on this war. The things which happened in the White House in Washington is the result of a longer development, I think, in Europe, which shows the whole situation. Also, the Ukraine is confronted since the independence, the fight for democracy, the fight for human rights, the fights for having their own rights to be a nation and to overthrow imperialistic thinking. At the moment, we are in a situation, I think, when we look back, and so I want to bring some optimism in this really heavy situation. 3 years ago, everyone thought 2 days or 3 days, and Ukraine is overrun by Russian troops, and then only and then we have a new Iron Curtain along the NATO frontier. But our trust, and I know Ukraine since 2015 with our project. I know about the resistance of the Ukrainian people of Ukraine against Russian imperialism, and it's not only in Ukraine; it's in Georgia too, it's in Moldova too, and so great that Lina Kush is the first secretary of the National Union of Ukrainian Journalists is joining this conference, a long partner. We discussed a lot of things, how to help Ukraine. And I think at the moment, and that are my last words, what's going on between the Trump government, not the US, the Trump government and the Trump administration at the moment, it's absolutely unacceptable. But it's a chance for Europe, I think. This is a chance that Europe has the opportunity, let's say it really in this way, to unify and to be to become the new house of democracy and human rights in the world. And so our support for Ukraine, military, financial, politically, is absolutely necessary, and I think it's unbroken. And we are 400 million people in Europe, and we have a great economic power. So it's our task now to throw Russia out of Ukraine and to build up a really new system of peace and security in Europe. And so perhaps it sounds a little, let's say thank you, Mr. Trump, that you unify, hopefully, Europe and give us a chance to fight for our values on the side of Ukraine and to support Ukraine, showing this US administration that they are not needed for things on our continent in the perspectives. So thank you very much for organizing this event today. And I think now Roger can say from the New European People's Forum, his perspectives combined with his British origin.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much. Your words, also your line about the 400 million. I think it's even more people in Europe. Actually, reminded me of an interview of Mr. Landsbergis. Gabrielius Landsbergis, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Lithuania, for Suspilne Novini in Kiev, who said that we are 500 million people asking for a 350 million nation to defend us from 140 million nation that is attacking Ukraine and are threatening Europe, which is a great point, I would say. So sorry to pop in before Mr. Casale. Roger Casale is a great supporter of our initiative, and I personally thank him for being here today with us, although he is extremely busy also with other engagements at a conference, I believe, now in Krakow. Here you are. The floor is yours, Mr. Casale.
Thank you very much, Zabia, and good afternoon, everybody. And yes, indeed, I am speaking to you from Poland, not from Krakow, actually from Mikołajki, near the Mazurian Lakes, not too far from the Belarus border. And I can tell you it's a beautiful day here, but of course not too far away. Sun may be shining, but the skies are darkening. We have a very, very serious, a very grave situation developing before our eyes. We've all been reading the news as we came on prepared for this event today. Let me start off, Xavier, by thanking you and your team, adding my thanks to Wolfgang for bringing us together. You've done a brilliant job, as always, with great commitment. And thank you to our speakers. Thank you for the European People's Forum to be a supporter of this event, a partner of this event, and also of, as you mentioned, the initiative Defending Democracy, because we're in for the long term, and this is going to take a long time. And so thank you for us being part of this, and thank you to our dear speakers, and thank you to all of the audience watching us on YouTube. And as Wolfgang mentioned, it's particularly good to have Lena Kush with us here as one of the speakers on the call, speaking to us from, who's going to be speaking to us directly from Kyiv. So I think the fact that we're all here today will mean a lot to Lena and to the people in Ukraine. We're facing this overwhelming danger and situation. It's difficult to know what we can do ourselves, what we can say that can be useful and meaningful. But I do know just the fact that you've brought us together is very meaningful. And the solidarity that we're showing amongst ourselves. This is very meaningful, particularly to the population and the people of Ukraine. And this is a time, a grave situation. It's a time for cool heads. It's a time where experience is required. It's very, very good that we've got Joran here, who's going to be speaking to us, former head of military intelligence. We need to draw on everybody's experience, whether it's from the military, whether it's from politics, whether it's from the economy, science, civil society. We need a lot of experience. But above all, we need to unite and we need to stand together. Thank you very much indeed, once again, for this opportunity to bring us together and to show our solidarity with Ukraine and with each other. And the second point that I would like to make is that we're going to be a lot of discussion today, as there was when we met during Human Rights Week just a short time ago, and so much has happened since we met in that second week of December in Skopje. And today you've published the recommendations from that conference, which are very pertinent and very clear. And I think it is remarkable how much has happened in the meantime. And of course, we don't know what's going to happen even this afternoon and this evening, let alone next week. But I think that those recommendations are very strong and very valid. And we're going to have further discussion today about what needs to be done. And what in particular needs to be done by Europeans, given the disappointing, to put it mildly, and you've used the word shocking, developments in the United States. But let's remember also for a moment that the so-called pivot of the United States towards the East and away from the transatlantic relationship is not something new. So we can be shocked about what's happening with Donald Trump. But we as Europeans shouldn't be so surprised about it, because this distancing from the transatlantic relationship from Europe is not something new. And it's encouraging to have Heather with us here from the United States, who's going to be speaking to us from the United States about the transatlantic relationship. I think in Europe we have sometimes taken the transatlantic relationship too much for granted. And this move away from the solidity of the transatlantic relationship from the United States and repivoting towards the East is not something new, although the current manifestation is indeed deeply shocking and disturbing. But it's this pivoting is not something new. And so we in Europe, we have this aspiration to come together and to unite and to be stronger and to be independent of the United States. And again, that is not new. And that is an aspiration. That is something that is strategic. It is something that we want to see, but there is a gap between that aspiration and the reality. And we should not have any illusions about how big that gap is. And so I think, to come back to the report, Xavier, I think it's very, very good to have a report that has got such a practical focus, and the recommendations that came out of the conference in December, those recommendations have such a practical focus, because I think our job, and it's the same, and our job today as well, is to start to see where we can fill in the gaps between aspirations, the aspirations that we have, and the reality, the aspiration of unity in Europe, the aspiration of strength and security in Europe, and the reality, and what needs to be happening to strengthen that. And with a particular focus, I'm pleased to say, on the role of the citizen and civil society, and the need to have strong and resilient democracies if we're going to be secure from a military and an economic point of view as well. So I'm very, very pleased to see that point made. And my third point, and I just want to close with this, is I think also what I hope can be reflected in discussions we have today. We're going to talk a lot about values, and this is about values, and this is about identity, who we are as Europeans, and the importance, the core universal values of freedom and democracy, and we need to stand with those. But we also need to think about our interests in Europe, exactly because we are democracies, and we have a job of explaining to do to our citizens who may be feeling very worried, may be feeling very concerned, not just about President Putin and President Trump, but perhaps about their cost of living and their lives and how they're going to make ends meet next week. And so we must always keep that idea in mind of our interests and our values. And these two things don't need to diverge. They actually are the same. So we are right to stand with Ukraine because these are our values, but it's also in our interest to do so. And we need to explain, we not to ourselves, but to our publics in Europe, why that is the case. So that we, I don't like the phrase "take people with you." I don't believe you can take people with you. I don't believe people are stupid. I think people know what they think. They can't be taken anywhere. But we need to make the case. We need to make the argument. We need to put that out there in the public debate, so that there is as strong a basis as possible within our societies, particularly in the face of right-wing authoritarianism, populism, and so on. There's as strong a basis as possible to support the work we need to do in strengthening and uniting Europe and standing up to Putin. So thank you again, Xavier, and I wish everyone a successful and productive conference, and look forward to working with you today and over the coming months and years to defend democracy in Europe and show solidarity and stand up to Putin and stand with Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Casale. Indeed, your ideas and your words are an inspiration for us in our daily work, just as it is the work of Media Dialogue of Wolfgang Ressmann and the great many other people who are in this initiative. But this contribution of yours is highly valuable, and we will use these recommendations and the messages in the days to come in order to help all this grim picture become at least slightly better. Now we need to start with the panel 1 according to the agenda, and the panel 1 is titled Resistance, Peace and the New Axis of Autocracy. Frankly, for those who are following us right now, this title of this panel 1 was different. It was milder, but then we, after the shocking developments at the diplomatic stage still, we changed it into this. Still, the meaning of the panel remains the same. So we need to discuss in this first panel about how from appeasement to siding with a murderous dictator is causing the danger in this really challenging time. So what are the perils of the Trump's alignment with Putin, as well as how shall we evaluate the European Union's response. We must mention the great reaction by Canada as well, the proud Canada. And what are the perspectives of Ukraine's fight for freedom and just peace? At the beginning, I would like to invite Ms. Kraske. Marian Kraske is a political analyst and author, and we know each other and worked together for a very long time, for many years. And I'd like to invite her to open the panel, after which we will go with a few other people that are in the agenda. Thank you for being with us, Ms. Kraske. Please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Derala, also Mr. Ressman and Mr. Casale. Thank you so much for the invitation and also for the organization. I think it's a really very crucial moment here right now, not only for Ukraine, for Europe, also for the Balkan region and for, the world as such. And I would like to reflect a little bit more in detail this history of the appeasement process. Javier Derala also mentioned, the occupation of Crimea. I take this also as an opportunity to reflect a bit on the German role, since I think it's really very important to deliver a holistic picture, to understand what were the mistakes on behalf of the Western stakeholders. And I think this is really very crucial if we also want to formulate lessons learned from this process. It started probably not really in 2014, but earlier, but I would like to go back to this 2014, to the occupation of Crimea. Because I think really the reaction, especially also the German reaction, led us to where we are right now. The German government, as a short reminder, at that time, Mrs. Merkel even pushed the Nord Stream 2 project. Just a reminder, that was the gas pipeline between Russia and Germany, right? And that was at that time the main focus. She also gave an interview in 2022, and she said that she saw the problems with this breach of international law, with the occupation, but nevertheless, Merkel pointed out that she wanted Verbindung through trade, connection through trade, not change through trade, but connection through trade. And she thought that was a good a decision at that time. It was also backed by, we have really clearly to state that the economy, the political leadership, they wanted cheap gas by Mr. Putin, and that was the main focus at that time. So I see this as a huge historic failure with disastrous consequences, and I think this led us to the situation where we are right now. To say we see that this is highly counterproductive, and obviously Putin, and I think this is probably correct, was feeling empowered by this non-reaction from Germany, but also by the rest of Europe. And he perceives this probably as a green light for further action and for going further, on this way of occupation and attacking Ukraine as a sovereign state. Then, as a consequence, Putin attacked Ukraine in 2022. I think this is a second pillar of appeasement. Since then, we saw 3 years of a really very weak and highly uncoordinated performance of the West, including also, I think, the Biden administration. And in Germany, it became evident that there was a lack of understanding of the Russian invasion. There were several statements by the Chancellor Scholz at that time that he was talking constantly about territorial goals by Russia. He didn't understand that it's not about territory, but that the regime in Moscow made pretty much clear that it was about the destruction of the whole nation. So in my understanding, I think that was really a completely misunderstanding on behalf of the German chancellor of the ruling party, especially also the Social Democratic Party by Mr. Scholz. And at that time, Chancellor Scholz formulated the concept of Zeitenwende, change of times, right? But without a strong commitment for implementation. And that was the main crucial point. So it is, I think this is very serious. We had at the end something on the, something like a crucial, it was really very pretty much spread also in the media. It was a piece of paper, but it was not infused in our foreign policy. And it did not lead to a strategic, for example, armament policy. So inside, we did not prepare, for example, for this Zeitenwende in Germany. We did not prepare our army, the Bundeswehr. This is, for example, also one crucial point. We see here also a lack of strategy. And on the other hand, we didn't support Ukraine properly. So what we witnessed was a clear strategic failure here in Germany because we didn't define, and I think this is very crucial for that time, covering these last 3 years since 2022, we didn't clearly formulate the strategic goal. And you could see this in the discussions because in the open discourse, it was discussed that Germany should Ukraine, and this is a quote, to support as long as it takes, which is quite vague, right? It doesn't say anything. But we didn't formulate the most important goal, right? So that we would support Ukraine and support everything, what need to be done so that Ukraine could win. And this is a difference. And I think this reflects this, if we are not clear in the analysis and if we are not clear in the formulation of a strategy, how could we then act properly? So I think this is very crucial to understand. And I think, again, that was a serious strategic failure by the German chancellor at the first place, a lack of strategic leadership. And the German Chancellor Scholz blocked within the German government, accordingly, the deliveries of technical war systems, such as the Tower system, which was discussed openly for months, right? And as a matter of fact, Scholz spoke more about possible or potential civilian victims in Russia than about the real victims in Ukraine. So what we witnessed during the last 3 years was that the German discourse was more or less dominated by the Russian perception, by the Russian perspective. What would Putin say? What would Putin do? That was, on a daily basis here, the dominant narrative in the German political discourse. Also in the media, by the way, that was interesting that even we will also talk about disinformation today. But even I see, as a journalist, I've worked for 10 years for the German news magazine Der Spiegel. We saw a huge failure within the media landscape, because that was not a corrective at that time, but we were spreading these wrong narratives and these completely misled discussions. So some of the leading military and defense experts in Germany have been criticizing Scholz for years for his insufficient support for Ukraine that would have enabled the country to win the war, but we didn't deliver enough. And I think this is the most crucial point at this moment. The election results recently in Germany reflected the fact that Scholz, the current chancellor, is not perceived as a leader, especially not when it comes to German security situation, also not to the European security situation. So he lost massively credibility and reputation. And therefore, I'm really very glad that we see right now interesting and crucial new dynamics. France and UK with Macron and Starmer, they took the lead, right, during the last weeks, especially after this very, disgusting speech of DJ Vance in Munich during the security conference, where it became clear that the security guarantees are over, the American guarantees for Europe. And we see right now that this coalition, also Poland is included, Denmark is very active, Finland, Estonia, though interestingly, Germany not, right? And this is a lesson for our new government to be learned, because we saw this also during the summit or the gathering right now in London. I don't know if you noticed that Mr. Scholz, he stood in the third row. Could you imagine, Angela Merkel standing in the third row? Not at all. So this is a message, and this is a result of 3 years of, somebody said this at the beginning, hesitation, delays, but especially coming from Berlin, from the Chancellor's office, from Mr. Scholz. And it was also a clear message to Germany, right, that the others took the lead right now. Germany lost on the international floor credibility. We're not perceived as the strong partner. Mr. Casale spoke about strength. Mr. Scholz, our chancellor, spoke about Besonnenheit. This is prudence. But what we definitely need is strength right now. So that's the reason why I really hope that with the new Chancellor Friedrich Merz right now, Germany will come back, in this crucial moment as a serious partner on the international stage. Also to work, and I think this is urgently needed, not on Besonnenheit, on prudence, but on a containment policy, on a strict containment policy. And I think what we definitely also need to discuss is how prepared are we at this moment? Because the Bundeswehr, the German army, is not prepared, and this is also a huge problem for our defense system right now. But this should be discussed probably during the afternoon. But this is so far my input on this history of appeasement, also with the reflections on the German role of appeasement during the last 3 years.
Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Kraske. We need to take from this your sharpness, directness, and uncompromised choice of words. Thank you very much indeed for that. And now I would like to move on with the agenda and invite Ms. Lina Kuszcz, the first secretary of the National Union of Journalists of Ukraine. Welcome to Ms. Kuszcz. Please take the floor.
Thank you, dear Habir. Thank you, dear friends, colleagues, and everyone who joined our meeting. I'm a first secretary of the National Union of Journalists of Ukraine, the largest journalist organization in our country. And it's a great honor to me to speak today. And first and foremost, I want to express my deep gratitude for your solidarity and support of Ukrainian journalists too. Despite the danger, despite these dark times, they continue their work every day. Your support inspires us, give us strength, and remind us that the trust must be heard loud and clear. A couple of days ago, I participated at the journalism festival in Zagreb, Croatia. It was a festival organized by a European Federation of Journalists, and it was great to meet a lot of colleagues from different countries, as well as from Germany and from North Macedonia as well. We talked about shared our experience in different kind, and I had an opportunity to share our experience about our work during the full-scale work. Full-scale war during the last 3 years. And one day, a journalist from France, she asked me to talk, and she said, I would like to develop a story about how Europeans have to prepare to the war. And journalists who asked me about how to prepare to shelling or to relocating or to power outage or to everything connected with the war. She said that her audience demands such knowledge now. And I thought that during 3 years, really, we get a unique experience. How to continue our work, not stopping for one day, and how to continue to help journalists with the highly important mission, not only with their work, but it as a mission of our journalists. The war has made our profession more important than ever. Information is not just a resource, it is a weapon in the fight for justice. Russia waged war not only with weapons, but also with propaganda. I talked with my colleagues from different European countries, and they are worried about increasing Russian narratives in their countries after the elections in the United States. Its goal is to spread fear, create chaos, and destroy trust in the truth. But Ukrainian journalists are standing firm. We document war crimes and report on from the front line under constant sharing, expose fakes and disinformation. Despite the risk, we do not stop because we cannot to do it. Since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, 16 Ukrainian and foreign journalists has been killed in the line of duty. Dozens are in Russian captivity, at least 30 Ukrainian journalists. Many more have been forced to flee or work under extremely difficult conditions. Yet, even under the attacks, even Ukrainian newsrooms, even in front line, continue to print a newspaper, deliver to their subscribers, broadcast news, and produce report. Local media play a particularly crucial role. People trust them because local journalists understand their communities, their needs, and their pain better than anyone else. During the war, Ukrainians rely even more on traditional media. Over maybe 90% of Ukrainians prefer to use social media for getting immediately or urgent information, like about air attacks. But as to trust to media sources, we see that only a half of users trust in social media information, but over 80% of subscribers of local newspaper media, they trust the information published in this media. And it push us to continue the resuming the work or continue the work at the front line in many places, in many on many territories, where the local print media are the only source for local information. During the war, we launched the network of journalist solidarity centers in 6 cities across Ukraine, including in frontline regions like Kharkiv, like Dnipro and Zaporizhia. These centers provide reporters with protective gear, bulletproof vests, helmets, first aid kits, as well as access to technical sources, safe workplaces, psychological support, legal support, and any kind of training, safety trainings, or trainings in digital skills and other. Since February 2022, more than 4,000 journalists have received support through our centers. Another crucial initiative of our union is the revival of local media that have been on the brink of collapse due to the war. Around 30% of newsrooms were forced to shut down due to the resource shortages, destruction or infrastructure, and loss of advertising revenue. But thanks to the support of National Union of Journalists of Ukraine and international partners like European Federation of Journalists, like UNESCO, like other partners, over 30 local newspapers in liberated and frontline territories have resumed their work. It is an important part of news field or information field in Ukraine. This is not about restoring, not just about restoring media, but about restoring trust and ensuring that communities have access to verified information about what is happening in their villages and close to their community. National Union of Journalists of Ukraine is also actively engaged in raising international awareness about crimes against journalists. We documented over 120 stories of journalists. There are video stories about journalists suffered during the war. Photo exhibition, advocacy events, and social media campaigns help us bring the trust to global audiences. And I want to thank everyone who stands with us, who speak out about the challenges Ukrainian journalists face and Ukrainian society face at all. Solidarity is not just words. It is certain actions that help us survive, help us work and fight for the truth. Together we are stronger. Slava Ukraini. Thank you.
Heroyam Slava, thank you very much for your precious, valuable information. It's very important to understand and be there for you, because you're defending Ukraine also with the truth against the war propaganda machinery, which is extremely powerful, sometimes even more powerful than the bombs themselves. I personally am the public advocate for Mr. Vilen Temeryanov, a Ukrainian Crimean journalist who has been captured by the Russian aggressors and currently is on Russian territory. And he's been submitted to punitive psychiatry in Russian prisons, something which is horrendous and is known from the infamous times of Soviet Union playbook for torturing those that think differently. And of course, he is only one of the many people from our profession that is suffering or has suffered tremendous challenges. And some of them, as you informed our audience, were killed, and many are imprisoned and are under threat. So stay strong and count on us. Yes, let's go on with the conference. Stay with us as long as you can to work together within this distinguished group. I now would like to invite our audience to welcome the two gentlemen who are from North Macedonia. The first one, if you allow me, I would like to invite Mr. Bojan Maricic, the former Deputy Prime Minister for European Affairs and former Minister of Justice, to address this forum here, and let us see how resistance, peace, and the new axis of autocracy are working with this topic. Mr. Maricic.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for the opportunity and for the invitation. I'm really
You're
glad.
also on the move, as far as I know. You're in Podgorica at the moment.
Yes.
Right. Thank you for joining.
Greetings from sunny Podgorica and Montenegro. I'm here on a task also, but I'm always willing and with pleasure joining your conversation and your discussions. First of all, I think it's good that we have this kind of conferences and talks that can open the brainstorming process in these shocking times, because we are living in shocking times. And as a member of a government who was without any reserves, fully supporting Ukraine and fully condemning Russian aggression, not only by words but only with deeds, we were 100% aligned with the sanctions of the European Union. We were the fourth nation in offering military and providing military support for Ukraine, given the size of the population as a NATO ally. And I think we not only did because it was an official policy of NATO and our allies, but because we also thought it was the right thing to do. But we are definitely facing an end of an era today, an end of an era of 80 years. And I think that this is something that we should seriously consider when making our plans and making the calculations of the political context. I think that the transatlantism and multilateralism are concepts that are under question today, which is not to be underestimated, because this was the basis of the democratic world in the past 80 years. That doesn't mean that it is gone forever, but it means that it will be different in the future, however this term of the next 4 years finish. Saying this, I think that we need to focus on, I would focus in my short contribution on 3 main points, particularly related to the role of the European Union and what should the EU do in today's circumstances. I think that the EU member states, first of all, have to wake up quickly and demonstrate leadership. Waking up means to wake up in this new multipolar world in which EU can be and should be one of the poles. And also to wake up in today's global battle for values. What does it mean in practice? I think that first of all, the EU has to try to define, determine, or draw the map of the European Union. The map of the European Union that should definitely include Ukraine, Moldova, and the Western Balkan countries. I think it's a final moment in which the EU has to show determination and leadership in defining its limits, its borders. And I don't think they have the luxury to miss out Western Balkans, but also Ukraine and Moldova. I think this would be number one in factorizing the European Union today in this new context and new situation. And I think that plans should be, first of all, determined with strong policy for negotiations with all the countries of the Western Balkans and Ukraine and Moldova, but also with a clear time plan of completing this process until 2030, until the end of this decade. So in the next 5 years, which I don't think is not, which I don't think is a fantasy. I think it's doable. I think it's feasible, particularly if we have in mind the focus that many of these countries already have on the process of negotiations. That will also mean that EU will need to build independent policy and politics and make a clear message that Ukraine, Moldova, and the Western Balkans are within the realm of the European political and economic interest and defense interest as well. I also think that when defining the borders of the EU and when defining the realm of the EU, inevitably we will have an open question about the role of Hungary and Slovakia in the European Union. And we will face the role of Hungary and Slovakia in a bitter way in the upcoming weeks and months when the European Union will discuss the future of the support towards Ukraine. I think it's legitimate to open the question about their role and about their willingness to participate in this union of values and in the union of the European nations. I also think that my next point is that EU has to be ready to defend its values and to fight for its values by all means, but also to invest in their policies and in these values. So to put the money where the mouth is, particularly in 3 areas: in defense, but also in economy and market development, and finally the social model, which actually makes a distinction between the European Union and the other poles of the multipolar world. And my final point is, at the same time, fighting for the values means that battle should first start from within the European Union. That means that they should closely follow the political map and the political developments in each of the member states, and to make it a joint battle for each of the member states. I don't think that radicals, particularly political options like AfD, should be underestimated, because these political structures, similar political structures, can actually ruin the European Union from within and make it even put it in even greater chaos than we are now. So I think I see this as a hope and opportunity for the European Union, that I also hope that the European Union will use this time for internal consolidation, but also for consolidation of the Western Balkan region and also Ukraine and Moldova. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Maricic. It's good to hear from a person who has been in both areas in the civil society, very prominent in that sector, but also highly experienced in the area of EU integration as a Vice Prime Minister for European affairs. And it is very good to hear that there is room for optimism. It's more than important now at this moment to see that somebody believes that there is room for optimism and then providing it through concrete analyses such as yours. While you were speaking about that, I remember an interview I had with Mr. Fouere, Ervan Fouere, who used to be the chief of delegation in North Macedonia and also a participant to the December conference, who said that the European Union should just use the mechanisms that are, for instance, there is one mechanism in the Lisbon Declaration, in the Lisbon Treaty, more precisely, which stipulates that if you don't stick to the values, then there is no money from the European Treasury. And it was supposed to be used in the past as well. I see signals that there are now efforts to use this stipulation finally for leaders that are such as Mr. Orban or some others across European Union. The last but not the least in this panel about resistance, peace, and the new axis of autocracy, I'm very glad to invite Mr. Goran Vasilevsky, Army Colonel, retired Army Colonel, also formerly head of military service for security and intelligence at the Ministry of Defense, the Macedonian Ministry of Defense, who I believe that you will agree with me, has the security aspect of everything that we're talking about in his hands and mind and in his experience. So I'd like to borrow his experience in the name of all of us from Mr. Vasilevsky and invite him to provide his view of what we are discussing today here. Mr. Vasilevsky, are we still there?
Good afternoon to everyone, and thank you very much for this opportunity to allow me to add some military space, if I can say that, spice to this civilian discussion, speaking about the topic. So, as a soldier, I know that Ukraine and Ukrainians want victory, but above that, I believe that they want justice, because they in no way cause this situation which we are evidencing now in their country. Yet, when the other side, when the Russia launched this war or aggression over Ukraine, they accepted it with courage and dignity, and they are fighting heroically 3 long years. Don't forget that, let's say, the last big war in this continent, in Europe, was lasted 4 years. If we exclude Poland, that it was for the 5 years. And now Ukrainians are the only country on European soil, if I may say that, that are occupied again after the falling of the Berlin Wall. So this is why, in my humble opinion, they need support by all possible way. But when you are in danger, then you are seeking first. You are seeking the help from your neighbors, and the first neighbor to Ukraine is Europe. So I don't know why United Nations is so I will say passive. Maybe it's too strong word, but it's a passive. But at least Europe or European Union must find a way to manage a sustainable peace based on justice and the equal position on both sides. If you don't take this my words wrongly, because you know, the equal position are needed if we know who the invaders are, you know, because pay attention, they didn't mention from the very beginning in February 2022 occupation. They didn't mention war. Even now they are not mentioning war. They are calling this occupation as a special operation. What the special operation means, nobody knows. Maybe tomorrow when they will achieve some peace or whatsoever on the diplomatic table, they will say, okay, this is exactly what we, you know, means to do with our special operation in Ukraine. And I'm sorry, but you know, as a soldier, I was told not to be optimistic, but to be pessimistic always. So I'm saying, you know, from the very pessimistic part of let's say my side. So at the same time, nobody, if the peace will be signed, and as I can see, all relevant sides, especially European, if we can say also United States, they're trying to, you know, force these solutions for the peace. Interestingly enough, you know, we are not seeing no sign of, you know, real interest from the Russian side. I don't know, you know, what is in their opinion, but they are now just passively waiting what the EU and US, not anonymously, but you know, separately will decide, which is not good for you, which is not good for Europe, which is not good also for Ukraine, because nobody should, you know, be in illusions that some permanent reconciliation will be reached. That's why I'm saying that I'm pessimistic. I believe that when this peace format in some way will be reached, the both sides will start to reorganizing their troops and preparing for the new conflict. Why? Because Ukraine already learned the lesson, you know, who their neighbor is on the eastern side, I will say, and the other side, because they face with humiliation that they didn't expect it on the battlefield. So I don't believe that this peace, on whatever way will be will be sustainable and in long term. Sorry for this my pessimism, but this is my opinion. And I'm saying this because I know what the war means. You know, I was in war twice. Luckily, I survived. Also, Europe knows what the war means. You know, that's why Europe, and most particularly European Union, shouldn't allow repetition of the nightmare started from the beginning of the last century until the very end of the last century, ending in 1999. Exactly, you know, during the campaign for Kosovo. So on battlefield, you don't have many options. You should kill or be ready to be killed. So if there is a chance for peace, let's grab it. But we should continue to fight to secure a peace based on justice. If I will say again, this is a possible on any way under these circumstances and conditions. And sorry for my emotions, but I must say that my sympathies are fully go to the Ukrainians and Ukraine, because in this moment they have the strongest weapon on their side, and this is Ukrainian soldiers. Believe me, as a soldier, no matter if you help them with the money, with the equipment, as somebody across the ocean said, we give you money, we give you equipment. If you don't have soldiers, fighters who are ready to fight, who are ready to die for the freedom of their country, then all this money, all this equipment and weapons are useless. That's why I will say that Europe rightfully should think and to learn from the Ukrainian experience and example, because believe me, some European countries, they are fighting with the problem to find soldiers. You know, not many young Europeans are ready to dress the uniform and go to fight somewhere. And those are who are now as a part of the EU army. Most of them they are there just for the visa, be honest, and for the salary. So that's why Europe, most particularly, must find a way to help Ukrainians stay behind Ukraine and find the best possible diplomatic way to bring the peace the peace on the table. Most European countries, luckily, are still on that line that they are helping Ukraine, and in my opinion, this is a right choice. And also, Marian said that any solution that favor aggressor will be judged and condemned by history, and most probably that will be evident that very soon. So at the end of my opportunity to give this speech, thank you very much for that again. Sorry if I was too much militarized and too much pessimistic, but I would like to say that Europe must be present and fight at the diplomatic table and provide a dignified and just solution for the Ukraine. Europe must make a clear distinction between aggression and the right to defend the freedom. And what Ukrainians are doing now, they are defending their freedom, they are defending their country. They didn't cause, as I said previously, they didn't cause this war. So if Europe do this, that will be at least a sign of respect to the Ukrainians and tribute to their fallen soldiers. So Europe owns this to Ukraine and to Ukrainians, and Europe, I will say, owns this to their next generations of Europeans as well. On my very end, I also think that this is a great chance for European unity, to make this unity stronger. Because if Europe fails now, we'll face a dictatorship all over the world, even in a very European backyards. And previous speaker, Bojan Maricic, mentioned some of 2 EU countries that are leading in this direction. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and I hope that this story with Ukraine will end as much as possible in their favor. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Vasilevsky. Your input, especially from the position of an experienced soldier, is important for us to face the reality. However, I'd like to reiterate our stance that peace without justice is no peace. It's only a ceasefire, as you mentioned, which will give the opportunity to both embattled sides to regroup and then continue fighting. So thank you very much indeed. I'd like to ask my colleagues if there is some message or some question from the online community. I have my colleagues also within this Zoom communication. We agreed that we will open the floor for people who are watching this live, and at the end of each panel there will be a couple of minutes only part in which they can pose a question or to comment. Anybody? Dragan, Biljana, Diana, Dehran? Anybody from the online community? Or we breached the 24 minutes over the agenda, but maybe just a quick response or reaction if there is anyone in yes.
Yeah, I would have a question also to Goran. because I think it's interesting also from your perspective as an experienced military and soldier, former soldier. So, what in your your perspective is justice? Can you just give a definition of that? Because I think this is also important, right? Just because we are also having participants from the Balkan region, and I just want to remind us that, for example, the Dayton Peace Accord somehow at that time in 1995 then ended the war in Bosnia. But we see that this agreement was good to end the war, right? But since then we see that this is more or less creating chaos. It empowered the ethno-nationalists because they were awarded more or less with 49% of the Bosnian state territory. And this is the current situation that the Republika Srpska is again, 30 years after the war, is again trying to undermine the state authorities and work on a secession. So Goran, just one idea, what is justice for you from your perspective when it comes to peace agreement for Ukraine?
Well, yeah, thank you for the question. Thank you, that you bring this on the table as a soldier, and I believe that you will agree with me. There is no such a thing as a full justice after the war. The one side, if nothing else, it is unjust for the people who died. They had families, they had their I don't know, wishes, ideas how to spend their life, and suddenly the war came, and they're not longer with us. But what I mean to the right justice for the Ukraine now is not to repeat the mistake of international community with the Crimea 2014 that you mentioned, because we are seeing that Russia slowly, every 10 years, they're launching some, imperialistic war or military action or operation. So they're, taking apart from their neighbors. In 2008 it was Georgia, as you mentioned as well. 2014 was a very important peninsula, Crimea. Now we see that Donbas and all this area on the left brink of Dnieper River is under their idea or special operation. So tomorrow could be some of the Baltic country. Don't forget Kaliningrad. The good indicator for me as a soldier and the former intelligence officer is that Finland and Sweden abandoned their neutrality after 200 years and joining NATO. So, I respect, their, how to say, political or diplomatic ability, so that they predict something before their decision to joining NATO. So just will be, to allow, according to me, finally to start this passive mechanism, as I said, of United Nations, because they have great mechanism to send, peacekeepers over there to, got all this, as you mentioned, Bosnia and Herzegovina. Bosnia and Herzegovina is a small country. They still have a problem, just because nobody, those or north side think that it was adjustable for them. Serbs, Croats, Bosnian Muslims on the third side. But Europe has very good experience of monitoring issue. OSCE used to have this special mission in Donbas before the war started. So if we combine these peacekeepers from United Nations and observing skills that world bring, have so far, I think that slowly the right opinion or right solution will come on the surface. Mm-hmm. So sorry if I was extensive, but I couldn't just answer you in one sentence. Thank you.
Thank you for the intervention, Marian, and of course, thank you for the response to this very important, interesting question, Mr. Vasilevsky. Well, I guess we're not very precise with the timing. And if there is another question, let's see if we can squeeze it in the second panel. So we just go on with the second panel right away, unless there is... Molim? Yes, Povili?
Аз само сакам да пренесам, се извинувам вака на македонски, неколку поздрави пораки кои што пристигна во коментари на Facebook и на YouTube. Имат голем поздрав и благодарност за поддршка од Катерина Соколова, нашата пријателка од Институтот за новинари од Киев. И исто така има благодарност и поддршка за Украина и за организаторите и во неколку коментари на Facebook. Исто така сакам да пренесам дека Катерина се соочи со ботови на YouTube, кои што се правдаат дека не се ботови, кои што сметаат дека се работи оваа конференција се работи за пропаганда, иако имаше и многу коментатори кои што ја оспорија таквата изјава, дека се работи за поддршка на Украина.
Thank you very much indeed. Biljana is reporting that Ms. Katerina Sokolova, our long-standing friend and partner in projects run by Media Dialogue as well, and who was in our country 2 years ago in Skopje at another project that we were running together, implementing together with Media Dialogue. She also reported that she was attacked by bots who were accusing us here in this conference as Russian propaganda entities. And of course, we have, just to end this intervention by my colleague Biljana Jordanovska positively, we have many greetings and support, expressions of support on social media, congratulating on this conference. Thank you, Biljana. Hvala, Biljana. Let's move on with the agenda. The panel 2 is Defeating Putin and Authoritarianism, the quest for peace, justice, and democracy. I believe that part of this was already discussed in the first panel, especially in the question of Ms. Kraske to Mr. Vasilevsky, but also others spoke of this. We have Heather Robertson with us. We have on the agenda also Miss Heather Robertson Gaston. She is a human rights expert, also working with the Virginia University in the United States, and a great help to Civil. I have to say, she's part of the now emerging advisory board of Civil, and she's been diligently working on the recommendations document that is part of the Defending Democracy initiative that was mentioned also in the introduction note of Mr. Casale. Then we have Mr. Roger Casale in the agenda, if he's still with us, unless he needs to move to the conference in Poland. Mr. Olivier Vedrin, political scientist from France, if he managed to join us, and Makartic Tonoyan, a multimedia artist from Armenia. We are also expecting Ms. Slavyanka Petrovska, former defense minister and a member of the parliament, currently member of the parliament of North Macedonia. So let's start with Ms. Heather Robertson Gaston on the question of defeating Putin and authoritarianism, the quest for peace, justice, and democracy. Starting with the guiding premises that it is not enough to defeat Putin. Putinism must be dismantled. Weakened democracies are also a consequence from the impact of disinformation, propaganda, and far-right ideological alignments, and which we saw in such a shocking way last week, end of last week. And then if we can at least outline some strategies for countering authoritarian influence. Ms. Robertson Gaston, the floor is yours.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much. Jabir, you might have to prompt me a couple of times because listening to this conference, I'm sitting here just madly taking notes on what everyone is saying, and I want to respond instead of just doing, sharing my thoughts that were better organized earlier in the morning. But I will try to get to all of these points. It's really wonderful to be here with all of you. I hope you can hear me okay. I was with many of you recently in Skopje for the conference on defending democracy and human rights. And it's just good to hear many of you again, to see your faces, and to kind of feel like I'm in Skopje, even though I'm coming to you from Charlottesville, Virginia, which is where I live the rest of the time. And Charlottesville is it's a university town. It is also it's the home of University of Virginia, and which is a university that was founded by Thomas Jefferson. It is a community that is a lightning rod for Nazis in the United States. We've had Nazis marching here. We have a governor who was considered a front runner to be the vice presidential candidate for Donald Trump at various times. So we have a government that some parts of the government is very happy to kind of implement what Trump would like to do. And so I want to get to that, because that's the part about pushing back and how to do that effectively, and how it actually is possible, at least with the mechanisms that we have. But I wanted to respond. Again, I want to respond to everybody. But I was listening to Marian Kraske talking about the problem of Russian disinformation and how it really infected the ways that people in Germany saw the situation in Ukraine, in the buildup to the war, in the first years, and how that really impacted the response. And it just made me think so much about what happened in the United States as well. And I have this American friend who reports from Ukraine, and he sends out emails in his Substack, and he had asked recently, what have you learned since the beginning of this war, since the beginning of these attacks? Have you learned anything? And it made me think about the attack on Ukraine and when it began, and just kind of what people thought about it, and what even I thought about it. At the time, I was a pretty typical American intellectual, somebody who's, I'm a member of all sorts of organizations for people who care about peace and justice, who study foreign policy, all of these kinds of topics. And the orientation of an intellectual like me is often, like very, very frequently, to be skeptical of US foreign policy, to think it is, our job is to keep an eye on the US and what it's doing. So, skeptical of our country's imperial ambitions, suspicious of our military industrial complex. We're the people who are going to complain when the US does something like send billions in military aid and then say, okay, well, here, country that has received our aid, you must spend it with our military contractors. And then, so we see all of these all of these issues, and that's what we generally spend time complaining about. The other thing is that in the recent period, maybe in the last decade or so, Americans have gotten more interested in issues of social supports, like the government should spend more money on things like childcare and instituting paid family leave, and things like that. And so you see the rise of Bernie Sanders as part of that. So what I'm saying is that to this really crucial group, when the United States started talking, when the U.S. government started talking about the warning that Russia was going to attack Ukraine, it was really unbelievable. And many people called it, a Red Scare, as if Russia somehow stood up for values of socialism and social justice. And so, what the government was really trying to do was, smash these ideas of socialism and social justice in the United States. It's hard for me to believe that I really thought that way, or that so many intellectuals thought that way. But and I would not say that people who are academics in this field, people who study peace and justice, who study U.S. foreign policy, I would say most people have, caught up. I certainly have, but it will take time for the larger population in the United States to really understand what is actually happening. And even last night, I was having a conversation where somebody said, "Look, we withdrew, the U.S., we withdrew in Vietnam finally. We do make peace with other countries so that, the fighting can end. What makes Ukraine different? Like, why not just, come to a peace that does favor Russia?" And I had to really explain what a huge threat Putin is at this time, that he is coming not just for Ukraine, but he's coming for Europe and for the United States, and that he's not coming with ideas of social justice and economic justice, but in fact with conservatism and hatred and Nazism, and that this is what is really represented here. Educating people on that is really important, and it's kind of this ongoing project. But this gets me back to my friend who asked, what have you learned in the last 3 years after the attacks on Ukraine began? And what I learned is that I listened to my friends in the Balkans. I thought back to the person who did try to warn me and who I really should have listened to. And I'm sure many of us know Javier and have known him for years. And, so there was somebody who was really, he was really, really tracking all of this very closely and, warning about it really frequently. And I didn't listen. So that is a huge, huge lesson that I learned, was that my colleagues do know what they are talking about, and they're paying often much closer attention than we are in the United States, where we're insular. We're very isolated from the rest of the world, and our intellectual class is concerned with other things often. Okay, but now I want to get back to this question of pushing back, defeating Putin, defeating authoritarianism, and this is where it becomes relevant that I'm in Charlottesville, Virginia, that I'm in a state.
Can I just
Yeah.
very briefly interrupt you
Please.
in service of what you're going to say now? Now, defeating Putin is not only defeating Putin and his narratives, but also his narratives who got their roots in the Oval Office itself. So, because we now hear Putin from the mouths of US leaders, which is shocking. So what is happening now? What is the democratic part of the United States doing? If you can incorporate that in what you wanted to say after this. Sorry for the interruption. Yeah.
It is very hard to crack that. As I was saying, there are many intellectuals who were amplifying what I would say now is Russian disinformation. It really did color the way that many officials see things and talk about things. And it is really disturbing to see, to see Trump say things like Ukraine started the war. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. And thank goodness there are people, even Mike Pence, his former vice president, pushes back and says, that is insane. That is not what happened. And there are a lot of people who push back. There are so many. But I think that, goodness, in terms of kind of the situation now, what I see in the United States, there are a lot of people who know that he is lying, that know he is in the, oh my gosh, I mean, just that he's very much under the influence of Putin, and that he's just like repeating what Putin says. But within this group, this is actually where I was going to start today, but then I just completely started talking about these other things that I think are very important. What you see is people who know that he's doing horrible things, that he's repeating the lies of Putin. But within this group, like almost one of the most common things that I have seen is that they say that they imply that he has won, that he is all powerful. And so the focus goes to, I don't even think there will be elections in 2028. Like people say that all the time. He's dictator for life. We're not even going to have more elections. Look at how he's called himself king. Look at the power he's given himself. Look at how the Democrats are doing nothing. Look at how the Republicans are too afraid to fight back. So the focus is on everyone who isn't fighting back because they're so scared. Meanwhile, there are ways to fight back effectively. And that's something that, I'm the chair of the Charlottesville Human Rights Commission. So what we do here is we do fight back. And we do, when our governor or our attorney general comes to implement Trump's executive orders, the thing that we do that is the most effective is tell them, hey, guess what? We are going to have elections. We're having elections this year in 2025 for the governor, for attorney general. This is going to happen. And Trump is not the only person you are ever going to be held accountable to. It's just not how it works. Because guess what? Look at his approval ratings. They are the lowest of any president at this time in office. Like at this point in his term, he is lower than any president has ever been since World War II in terms of approval ratings. Projections are that the next elections will be in the Democrats' favor. He has fired thousands of federal workers who thought that he was going to do something for them. They voted for him because they thought that he would help him economically. So all of us have to keep pointing that out. He won't always be in power. The only way he will always be in power is if we all believe it, because when we believe it, we stop fighting back. So, this is what I would say. Sorry, I get very passionate about this because in the United States right now, this is like the uncoolest thing to say. The cool thing to say is he's a dictator for life. There's nothing we can do. That is the kind of thing, you post that on Facebook, you're going to get like hundreds of likes, you're going to get responses to your email. But when you say, oh, actually, as chair of the Human Rights Commission in Charlottesville, what I just did, and I did not write this resolution, but I presented a resolution that argued that University of Virginia shouldn't implement an executive order. And this is why, because in the future, the university will be accountable to the law, and these executive orders break the law. And here are all of the laws that are broken if we implement this executive order. And guess what? They did reverse their decision. So it actually does work, but you have to remind them, you will not always be held accountable to Trump. He is not the only power. We are powerful, and look at the ways that is possible. And so, this is something we talked about at the most recent conference, that we have to amplify. Every time we have a success, we actually have to show people, hey, this is what we did specifically, and this is how it worked, and this is how we defeat these people. Okay, I'll answer any questions. I'm sure I didn't get to everything I should have, but
No, of course, there are a great many other aspects and things to discuss when it comes to this, but I think that we can't repeat and reiterate enough the fact that defeating authoritarianism, that we call sometimes Putinism, now also Trumpism, and so on. Different. We used to have Gruevism in our country. Hungarians still have Orbanism and so on. But authoritarianism is a trouble that is tormenting societies all across the world, including Europe, including the democratic European Union. And we see the authoritarian tendencies in the far right being on their march to reach the power structures, the power centers in the countries via democratic tools, elections and so on. But we all need to know that they are all so well connected. And that means that we also need to connect our forces. So, and the fight is global. I mean, it's local, it's national, but it's also global. So please count on us. We know how to topple a dictator in our country. We can provide some knowledge and information on how to fight democratically and in a peaceful way. And of course, all that will help the Ukraine's nation to fight off the aggressor. Because if our democratic societies know the knowledge, know the value of freedom, then they will support the aid programs and the military aid to Ukraine in order to liberate its territories and secure a lasting peace. Thank you very much once more, and I apologize for my too long intervention. I get some information on my chat here that Mr. Olivier Vedrin is with us, but also he is accompanied and also with Mr. Casale, who is also informing us that Mr. Jean-Yves Leconte, I hope I'm pronouncing the French names well, who is a former French senator online. So before we lose the connection or they are taken to some other parts of the conference, I would like to ask them to join us briefly, unless it's too late.
Oui, bonjour.
Bonjour. Bonjour.
Then I am ready to answer your question.
Yes, please tell us what is your consideration on how to defeat Putin, but not only Putin, but also Putinism, or in other words, how to defeat authoritarianism, because just toppling a dictator is not enough. We need to dismantle authoritarianism. How do you think it is possible?
Oh, it's a big and very difficult.
In a few minutes.
First of all, you know, we have to come back, I say, for the philosophical part of the answer. We have to come back to for US to the US Constitution, and you know, for me this is a big shock. What's happened now in US? I spent my childhood in South Carolina. I was in USA. I was invited by the Congress on December 2022 to discuss about Ukraine. Then for me it's a big shock what is happening now. That's why I think for US they don't have to forget the US constitutions and the father founder of USA first. And for France or for Europe this is the same. We don't have to forget why we built Europe, the Second World War, all the network of resistance against the Nazism, who are also at the beginning of the story of the European unification. But this is philosophical. Now, you know, why populism, why authoritarianism are, I can say, successful. This is because they are lying with concrete things who can do some echo on the real life of the citizen. For example, for Trump, he will say, he say, we make America great again. You will have more money, more job. Okay, he's a liar, but he was elected. Like Hitler or like Mussolini, you know, they speak a lot, they are a liar, but people vote for them because they are answer to concrete things. And if we want to destroy the populism, we have also not only to be very philosophical, we have also to be very concrete, pragmatic. We have to build something to make people vote for us or to be agree with us. And that means we have to show the society we want to do, we want to build, and how we can make people more happy in their own life without lying to them. And that's very difficult because the populism, they are lying, and we know that all dictatorship, all populism are in the history at the end, this is catastrophic. But if we want to fight, we have to fight also with big pragmatism. We have to fight with you know, we have to take care about what is going on inside the family, inside the life of the citizen. And we have to promote society. We have to promote and to show that they can be more happy with democracy than with authoritarianism. That's really difficult, but that will take a long time. The problem is that populism and authoritarianism this is more easy to sell than democracy. That means we will fight, we will win, but the question, we will win after what? After a new war, after a new revolution, after riots? Because one day people will wake up in USA and in Russia and in all countries where you have authoritarianism. And we need to be ready to propose to those people, when they will wake up, a real new democratic system with our values. And for values, we have to come back to the US constitutions in USA and to the father founder of the European Union in Europe. Voilà. This is what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much indeed for your brief but very interesting points, especially the point when you say the societies need to wake up, but when? After what? after a new war? And that's a really alarming question.
My friend, the French senator Jean-Yves Lecomte, want to do a little speech also.
Oh, please, of course, of course. Bonjour, Mr. Lecomte. Please join our conference with the questions that we're discussing. I believe that you heard the questions already.
Yeah,
about how to defeat authoritarianism.
To make something very short, but I think that we have to show to people that liberal democracy with check and balance is able to deliver what they want. If the efficiency of democratic government is questioned, we have a problem. And clearly today, we have this kind of problem. We have a lot of citizens who believe that authoritarianism is better to drive change. And we have to show, and it's the responsibility of the politician to do it, and to make citizens aware about that if we want to keep democracy, we need to have a democracy which is able to deliver the change, to deliver a better life. And for that, we need to work about program. We need to show to people that it's not because we will make change very quickly that the change are good. That because check and balance, we can discuss, we can debate, and we can find the best compromise to unite all the society and to drive to the change, the change. And I think because today a lot of challenges are very complicated. I mean, all the things connected with artificial intelligence, the change in the work, all the civilization of the life is changing a lot the society, and politicians are not ready, are not able to do politics in the new situation, and that's the problem. But I'm sure that at the end, check and balance will have more efficiency than authoritarianism regime. And we have to show that.
Yeah.
And this freedom, this democracy, it's exactly what we see in Ukraine since 3 years. If Ukraine was able to resist, it's not just because Zelensky was Zelensky, but it's because each Ukrainian take a part of that in coordination, in unity. And this is the force of a society when she is united and when the society is democratic. We have now, to show that democracy is able to deliver, the victory of Ukraine is necessary.
Thank you very much, Senator, for joining our discussion at the conference. I believe that your words, as well as Mr. Verdun's, will echo also in France, which is now after the rifts that we see across the Atlantic Ocean, will take the leadership together with other great nations and administrations across the European Union and help this the process of bringing peace, but a just and lasting peace with security guarantees for the Ukrainian nation. Do you think that France is at risk at the moment in terms of democracy because of the tremendous rise of the far right? This is just a very brief notion from you, being from the sector, the political sector that you're coming from.
There is a risk, yes. I was really afraid in July last year. So I cannot say that there is no risk because, in fact, since now 8 months, the situation is not better in France. Concerning the support to Ukraine, I'm not afraid. I see the French society, and the French society is really agreed with support to Ukraine today. It's not a problem. After we can discuss about when, if we need to send soldiers and so on, but the idea to support Ukraine is clear. But there is clearly a risk in France too. Even if today, I'm sure that we don't have a majority for the National Front. That's clear. And we have seen that in July, but it's unfortunately possible.
Thank you for this final note. And please stay in touch and help us fight our fight in the forthcoming months and years. I believe it will be a long one. So I'd like to ask my colleague Arian if we got Mr. Toynoyan and Ms. Petrovska online. I guess not. So on my agenda here is also Mr. Casale, if he would like to add to this discussion, if he's still with us. He said that he might be busy.
He was with us, but he leaves now.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, then let's move on with the agenda. But before that, Dragan or Diana or Biljana, who is there, or Dehran, do we have some urgent questions, or we can move on to the third panel, because we are behind schedule now. If we don't have any urgent questions, then we go with the next panel, which is panel 3, disinformation as a weapon, countering disinformation and hybrid warfare. Russia's information war and propaganda is shaping public opinion across the world. Manipulated public means that we need to answer also the question how disinformation obstructs the fight for freedom, peace, and democracy in order to go on. And then if we can make any effective strategy to identify and counter disinformation and propaganda. All these questions, and of course many others that are related, deserve special long conference, maybe for days, but we only have half hour ahead of us to welcome, if she's still with us, at the first as a first panelist, Ms. Olha Daniliuk, editor-in-chief of Volinska Gazeta, Ukraine. Is Ms. Daniliuk with us still?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for being with us, and I can't repeat enough how touched I was with your presentation back in December on in our conference, where you couldn't participate in person, but your words are still echoing in our minds. Thank you for that. And please share your thoughts with us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I also want to thank again for every participant today for your kind words and to your support. We heard lots of times here that we said words, actions speak more than words. But to be honest, in today's world, I think words are also very, very efficient, and to hear even words of support is very, very important. I was thinking about the topic a lot today, yesterday, and just in general, as a journalist, I think it's one of the main topics that we face, but also as a Ukrainian, it's even it's doubling. To be fair, I wanted to focus today in my speech mostly about what is happening in informational space now, and what is happening is, I would say, horrifying. As you saw, what happened several days ago in the US, and just in general for last months was truly horrifying for Ukrainians, and I think for democratic world in general. But now what is happening after a few days is even more important, because now Ukraine, I would not fear to say that, is facing probably one of the biggest informational attacks. And in informational space, we can see that lots of bots, lots of media outlets, even lots of officials from Europe, even, and from US, they are attacking Ukraine, attacking Ukrainian president, and this is purely horrifying. And I prepared some points, and I wanted to say that the main topic of this attack, obviously, is now everyone discussing, someone discussing Zelensky's suits, someone is discussing, which is for me hilarious. I don't think it should be even a topic, to be honest, on the media outlets. Someone is discussing US aid to Ukraine. Someone is discussing was Ukraine even grateful? It is a topic of discussion. I know that people know the truth, but it is a topic of discussion. And I want to say that Ukrainian media, they responded immediately after what we were accused of. For example, Ukrainian media outlet United 24 fact-checked Trump immediately after, and JD Vance, after they said that Ukraine was not grateful. They published an article where they gathered all gratitude and thanks that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said from the beginning of war. And to be precise, it was 94 times only on his Telegram channel, not even in public speaks or privately. So we cannot even measure the, the exact number, but publicly it's almost 100 messages that was sent. And not only Ukrainian media, so I know that also American media, even like TV presenters, they were saying this, showing video clips to US officials, saying, confronting these lies. But as we can see, even confronted directly to the face, sometimes it doesn't work. People just ignore it, and they continue to tell lies, to tell fake stories, even when journalists or just activists, they are telling the truth. Also, for me, it's very important to talk through. I'm sure that all people who are gathered here, they know the truth, but I would like to say through it again about fact checking. Nowadays, the whole media atmosphere also filled with numbers, full of figures, and for example, how much US, right, allocated funds to Ukraine, and we see different numbers every day, which is also for me hilarious. Sometimes it's $500 billion, sometimes it's $300 billion, sometimes it's $350 billion. But in fact, also several fact checkers, for example, I found information from inspectors and the Congressional Research Service. And we are talking about much less support. It's about $183 billion. And most of these funds, they were more like direct military equipment to Ukraine, or just stayed in the US. And so here, the problem is we are speculating on actual facts that everyone knows, but media outlets, they discuss it as a topic of discussion, not as a fact, but as something that can be discussed as if the sky is blue, and if someone see the blue sky as red, it's a problem of this person, not of the sky, and this is a big problem, I think, because previously we saw that propaganda, disinformation, it was coming from, I don't know, anonymous bots or some propaganda channels from Russia. We were talking for years about it, about disinformation attacks from Russia, from several bot systems. But now the problem is Russian propaganda, and just propaganda in general, is not only pouring from Russian officials or Russian media outlets, and now U.S. Government is directly producing or continuing propaganda. And this is a big topic because propaganda always existed, but now a spokesperson completely changed, or plus one. And this is a problem because less support, less even sources from where we can fact check, and this is the big problem, as I think. Also, but I wanted to say that people in Ukraine, also journalists, media outlets, are still working, and I think the biggest cure for everyone is now like donating, obviously, and supporting Ukrainian army. Now we understand that we can only count on European friends or on ourselves, and this is a big change, the big shift, I think, in even people's minds. And I want you also to understand that the biggest problem with informational attacks is also moral attacks. With informational attacks, it affects our mentality, our even moral state, which is very important in this war. And but people are still fighting. People are still, obviously, no one wants to surrender. People want a justice. People want peace that will be long in peace, that will be secured by guarantees. And because we don't want to have similar conferences about injustice in 5 years, we want to talk about consequences from our conferences, from our talks, that we achieved actually something, which is very important. Now, as I told on the previous conference, still Ukrainian media, they facing lots of obstacles, and one of them is underfunding, as I mentioned before. But now, what is for me a very bad signal, lots of not even local media outlets, as I am editor-in-chief of local media, but one of the big, I would say, Ukrainian outlets that were producing news to the whole Ukraine closed just yesterday, and this is a very big problem. This outlet is called Svidomi. They post their work, but they don't know exactly if they will continue it. And for example, my friends, they were working in this outlet. They completely devastated because they were trying for last months to find some fundings, but no result, unfortunately. And as you know, it's also the consequences of USAID, that is not providing funds anymore for independent media outlets. And also, I wanted to share with you that not only that, only yesterday, I think, Ukrainian investigation group, they produced a documentary investigation about a Ukrainian activist, a Ukrainian journalist, Victoria Roshchina, who was murdered in Russian captivity. And they presented this investigation just yesterday. So I wanted to say that even in these circumstances, people are continuing to work and showing the truth. So, and from our side, from local media outlets, from Volynska Gazeta, we are also continuing to work, although half of our team is fighting in the front line. We still work with volunteers, we work with students from different Ukrainian universities and try to expand our media outlet despite all of the obstacles. And yeah, I think this is very important. These are substantial results that we are now having, and the main cure, I would say, to fight disinformation, propaganda, or even like news that are completely continuing to produce from the other side of the ocean, is to honestly concentrate your strengths and your work on what you can change. And as a speaker from US previously mentioned, that it's very important to focus on what we can do rather than what we cannot do. And this is what my Ukrainian journalists are doing now. Not only journalists, Ukrainians, they are continuing to work, and even more than they were working before. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Daniliuk. Thank you, Ocha, for this inspiring presentation. I wish you a lot of luck and courage and strength to you, to your team in the newsroom, but also to those that decided to be in the front lines. Stay with us, please. And just inspired by you, I'd like to just make a short comment that whenever a newspaper or internet portal or any newsroom shuts down, then there is a very high risk that the disinformation and war propaganda takes place in. So media deserts are never media deserts, actually. Those are the spaces where disinformation, lies, false narratives, hate, and war propaganda takes root. And that's maybe in your name, if I may, I would appeal to the donor community to immediately send support to Ukrainian media, both local and national ones, because that's the battlefield that is almost as important as the one where the real bullets are flying. Thank you once again, Olga. Stay with us. And I'd like to ask Mr. Mika Boyster, who is, I believe, still with us, the president of the German Union of Journalists, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, journalist association in the country, in Germany. He was with us in the conference in December as well. Many of his thoughts were incorporated in the final document of the recommendations that derived from the initiative, Defending Democracy initiative. And if Mika is here, Mr. Boyster,
I'm here.
Please take the floor.
Thank you, and thank you so much for inviting me. And so great to see you again. You're just the powerhouse of civil society engagement in Europe, and you're a beacon for all of us here. And thank you for being hyperactive for the good cause in a good way. And good to see so many faces again, Wolfgang, and of course everybody else here, Heather, and everybody else that I met in Skopje. So first of all, let me express solidarity with all of my colleagues in Ukraine. They're doing a wonderful job, a difficult job, and a dangerous job on top of that. And they show that freedom is not only defended by soldiers, which we heard is very important. Of course, in an armed conflict, you can't fight without soldiers and weapons and cannons, but freedom and civil society and liberties are also defended by journalists who fight against disinformation, hate, propaganda, who are practicing the human right of freedom of the press. So our full solidarity. The German Federation of Journalists has started a fundraiser. We're currently still collecting funds. Our goal was 10,000 euros for frontline journalists to supply them with basic things like paper, ink, printers to keep their job going, which they need, and it's become a more pressing issue since the U.S. administration under Trump has stopped funds from U.S. aid to Ukraine, which also was funding some parts of local frontline journalism, which is necessary. And just for the people living there, they get crucial information from the journalists working there, which we heard. So it's not only about the big picture, about us getting information from the frontline, what's happening in Ukraine. People living in Ukraine need information, valid information about everyday life, what is going on. And this is as crucial as food, as electricity. Information is as important. So full solidarity for everybody working there, and I hope we can get the funds to our friend Sergei Tomalenko, the president of the Ukrainian Federation of Journalists, Union of Journalists, as soon as possible. I've just received word that a school project in northern Germany is still collecting, so they want to donate a little bit, a couple of hundred euros, but there's no amount too small to help, and I'm looking forward to giving the Ukrainian colleagues the go that we finally can transfer the fund. So that is a starter. But now to the topic of disinformation and propaganda and what we could do about it. In Skopje, I foreshadowed what will happen in Germany after the federal election. And I said about 20% for the so-called alternative for Germany would be something that we would have to take into account. And unfortunately, that projection was quite true. Exactly that is what happened. And I said there would be no government with AfD influence. So that obviously happens, as well as there's just coalition talks. The winner of the federal elections, the Christian Democratic Union under Friedrich Merz, is trying to build a government with the Social Democratic Party, where Scholz, the chancellor, is no longer a relevant force, which you've seen at the summit, third row. We already talked about that. So he is not a figure, the name you probably don't need to remember. He's retiring from active politics. But what happened beforehand? What happened in that campaign in Germany? What does it mean for you? What does it mean for the topics that we talked about? We've seen an unprecedented amount of fake news, disinformation, and propaganda from Russia that influenced or tried to influence the elections in Germany. And this is public knowledge, which not only the German security forces warned about months before the election, but which journalists discovered in good research, and it's broadly publicized exactly which groups with strong ties to the GRU, the Russian military service, intelligence service, deeply strong ties, and you can name the groups that try to influence the election with means of deep fakes, artificial intelligence, and best practice experience from the campaign in the United States, from the presidential election. It basically was a copy and paste operation of everything they've done in the Trump campaign, they have done in Germany as well. And go figure, it worked on so many levels. The worst thing that I've seen is copied newspaper sites or fake media outlet site that look like the original. So let's say The Guardian or whatever portal you could imagine, with fake news, deep fakes, artificial intelligence generated content, which looks pretty convincing these days. So the days are over where we can laugh about children in Palestine having 6 fingers or 3 arms and people falling for it. We were all smiling about that. Those days are over. Those days are over. This content is pretty good on the technical side, and it gets more sophisticated and it has this believability because it looks like it's genuine journalistic content. And it can get quite perverse when politicians are being accused of being Russian spies, for example, which is quite a perverted thing to be accused of by Russian spies that targeted a FDP politician. The Liberal Party is no longer in government, but that wasn't the cause. The Liberal Party did not have very well campaigned, so they didn't need the disinformation campaign to not get voted for. But that was a part of a politician that strongly argued for more arms for Ukraine, just to take notice. But also the foreign minister, Annalena Baerbock, who was reported to have an affair with a gigolo, and there was pictures and video TikToks and all of that. So some people fell for that, and it's just not the one single clip. It's not the one single piece of disinformation that is crucial. It's the flood. And as Steve Bannon said, let's flood the zone with shit. To put it mildly, that's exactly what's happened. He talks about muzzle velocity. So the big picture is this disinformation campaign work because it's so much, it's overwhelming. And we as journalists whose job is to identify disinformation and educate the public are just overwhelmed by the sheer mass of attempts to make us uncertain about what's fact, what's fiction, and this makes the jobs of journalists so much more difficult. And we lose the sight of the big picture. What is the topic that we need to talk about? And we heard it before. Roger Casale said it so wonderfully. We need to address those topics that are relevant for the public. And usually it's not mass migration. In most European countries, it's other topics that are so relevant for everyday life. Food prices, housing, public transport, education. How do I combine working and raising kids? Those are the topics that are of so much importance for everyday life for most people, and we tend to get that out of the picture. That the agenda setters are the ones who cry the loudest from the extremist corners in the internet and in the analog world. So I think we as journalists need to focus more on the topics that are relevant for a majority in society. Set the agenda back to those topics. Of course, we need to talk about migration and how to manage it. It's a very important topic, but it's not the only topic, and it's not the only topic that needs to be addressed. We need to talk about the climate crisis and how it will affect all of us, and of course, how it's linked to migration. And one last aspect is we talked a lot about security in the face of the Russian aggression towards Europe. And not towards Ukraine. I think we're all agree that Ukraine is just one part of Russian aggression that's targeted to all of Europe, to all of the West, so to say, if we can put the West as a template here for all societies that are democratic, they're free, and want to decide their fate on their own terms. So we need to talk about comprehensive security. We need, of course, to address the military aspects. This is a separate topic. But we need to address that a resilient society is one that doesn't only know how to defend itself militarily, but also has digital sovereignty. So we need to regain our sovereignty on the information infrastructure. We need resilient journalists and journalism, of course, but we also need the infrastructure to transport information. So we need to have a platform, a digital European social network that's according to our terms. So we're independent from social networks in the Silicon Valley or in Beijing, for that matter. We need stricter laws in the European Union that are enforced against everybody that tries to force us on our own terms. So we need digital sovereignty in Europe. This is the only way to secure infrastructure, get our information across. So, as Xavier, as you told, that you as a platform, as well as everybody else who has a media platform in Europe, has their own means to get that information across, independent from any national government attacking you, independent from any bot attack from Russia or Beijing putting you down. So we need digital sovereignty. We need platform regulating laws in Europe. And this is the main key of a comprehensive security, as important as defending Ukraine with cannons, with fighters, with soldiers, as important as to defend Europe on the information battlefield, what to say. We need our own infrastructure and to enforce our own laws to defend our values. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Mika, Mr. Boyce, for these inspiring and really rich in content information and thoughts. And I believe that my colleagues Heather and Wolfgang are already thinking about updating the version of the recommendations that derived from the last December's conference with even more details from what you said, because what you spoke about digital sovereignty and the need for European social network, independent from the Silicon Valley and Beijing, and for that matter, also from other centers, not to mention them now. And it is an important part of our document with recommendations, but I believe that with the new elements you added right now, we need to enrich that document right away. I'm sure that my colleagues who worked on these recommendations will agree with me. Thank you very much. Stay with us. And as we are moving on with the agenda, I'd like to invite now Mr. Marian Zaberchanets, communications specialist and former government communications director of North Macedonia, and also something that is not in the official agenda. I'd like to mention that long before being involved in preparation for the government's strategy to fight disinformation and hybrid threats, he was a civic activist, a human rights activist, a very important youth leader in the country, and also being a very prominent leader of the protests in the country in the times of the fight against the authoritarian regime of Mr. Gruevski, who is now enjoying an asylum in Hungary. So thank you for being with us, Mr. Zaberchanets. The floor is yours. Tell us about your thoughts and information about what we are talking about here today, especially in the light of your experience as an author of strategies to fight disinformation and hybrid threats.
Thank you, Jaber. Congratulations to you, to Civil, and to the Democracy Defenders Initiative for opening these topics, discussing these very relevant issues in extremely difficult times. The disinformation is only a small portion of the complex of hybrid attacks on the overall system of democratic values. Unfortunately, we are all witnessing that the democratic world has failed and is still failing to prevent them, and on many occasions has not even managed to defend itself from such attacks. Today, we must understand that hybrid attacks as attacks, they are attacks that lead and will eventually lead in the future to serious conflicts between citizens, between groups, between peoples, and between states. These are real wars that we are already witnessing on multiple fronts around the world, wars in which innocent people are already suffering and will continue to suffer. And of course, those who will suffer the most will be the marginalized, and weaker citizens. Disinformation leads to disintegration and destabilization. Let's just look at the region. We have here in Skopje an active dispute between North Macedonia and Bulgaria in Sofia, and we have the Macedonian government's refusal to fulfill its constitutional obligations. So the outcome is blocked European integration of the country. This is not only a bilateral issue, it goes deeply within the regional and geopolitical relations. Look at the developments in Serbia, the protest movement there, and the radicalized behavior of the governments there. The tensions and the shock bombs exploded there at the parliament today. Look at the situation around Dodik in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Republika Srpska. It's clear that the Balkans are boiling again, and it's clear that there is a risk of serious regional security problem. The situation was caused, among other things, by the long-standing disinformation and hybrid influences from East against the West, from the regimes against the democracies. And if some time ago we used to say that the creators and distributors of disinformation were hidden in some basements, and that the democracy would win because the Democrats held the mainstreams in the democratic and Western world, today, unfortunately, this is no longer the case. The same ones who spread fake news from basements today are mainstream political players, leaders of states and governments. The same ones have come out of the basements, and today they drive on the highways and they dictate political trends. In other words, it gets worse. What is unclear is whether we will face with conflicts in which two or more sides will clash by war, or whether the conflicts will continue to be caused by hybrid attacks. For example, chaos in the educational school system due to mass false reports of fake bombs, or maybe coordinated explosions of pagers, or maybe chaos in traffic due to intrusions with mobile devices into the Google Maps systems. However, it will get worse. North Macedonia is also not doing well either in defense or in preventing disinformation and hybrid attacks. The civil society and the media here did not accept the offered hand for a joint fight against disinformation offered by the government in the period from 2018 till 2021. They also did not organize themselves to do anything more than fact-checking. But today, the question is whether the fact-checking programs will survive, considering that Meta has already determined termination of cooperation with them, and USAID is almost non-existing, and we know that USAID was one of the strongest supporters of the disinformation fighters. The government of North Macedonia was recognized as a leader in transparency and openness in the region from 2018 to 2023. But today, here in Skopje, we have a government that has no intention of dealing with disinformation. From this government, we should only expect abolition of transparency and accountability, occupation and control of the media space, an attack on freedoms, and setback in the media and democratic literacy of young people. That's the only way a government close to Orban can do. So what can we deal with in such a crisis? First of all, we need to pressure to push and to do pressure for transparency, to do exposure and unmasking. Civil society organizations, activists, journalists, they have to push for transparency and accountability on all levels, to investigate, to dig for facts, to criticize, to ask questions loudly until they get an answer, and to be vocal about every unanswered question. Second, we need decisive actions by democratic governments and institutions. Of course, I'm thinking about democratic governments and institutions in the countries and municipalities where they exist in Europe. A good example of this is the decision of the Constitutional Court of Romania to cancel the elections due to external hybrid influences in favor of one of the candidates, of course, the one that was close to Putin. Third, we need to self-organize on alternative online platforms that are not controlled by Elon Musk and those like him. I fully support the idea of the previous speaker for European social platform. A hybrid action is necessary to expose disinformers and to promote facts and truths. The time is coming when the truth has to stream both on the streets and from the online basements. Our channels for action are the public spaces and the safe online platforms that are not under control of political moguls. We need more content. We need 2 democratic podcasts for each anti-democratic one, because the content is king, because without content, there is no win. Fourth, we need strong NATO. It is necessary for NATO to remain committed to countering hybrid attacks and to promote mainstream democratic narratives, same as it has been doing since the beginning of the Russian military aggression against Ukraine. NATO has to continue its excellent communication battle, regardless of the US positions on NATO policies. And fifth, finally, we need a determined Europe. Bojan Maricic was speaking on the first panel about this. I will just take some of the points in order not to repeat with him, but it's evident the withdrawal of the American influence on the Balkans, and it suggests that our last opportunity for EU integration may be nearing. Meanwhile, both Russia and Turkey, they're showing interest and they're becoming more pronounced in our region. Speaking about North Macedonia and the region, unfortunately, the EU's efforts to communicate its values and opportunities have not always been matched by concrete delivery. This inconsistency has led to loss of credibility among the general public. So EU started to lose its credibility here, but the loss has also spread to the political parties, to the groups and to the organizations that are publicly advocating for European integration. However, the support of our citizens for the EU path remains stable. Still 65% of the Macedonian citizens at the moment are supporting the EU path, and this is a window of opportunity. So Europe must deliver what has already promised and even more. The EU has to define new deliverables in order to renew the public narrative here and the public support both in Macedonia and the region. So there is a momentum of opportunity. The Ukrainian crisis with the Russian aggression and the American shift can be a huge opportunity for Europe to rebuild its unity with an upgraded and determined narrative 80 years after the idea for the European Union was established in practice. The region, as well as North Macedonia, must be given an offer that cannot be refused. It has to be an offer that makes a difference. It can be a major financial support for capital projects. It can be new investment in establishing open economic zone here, or a common single market, or maybe entry of our countries at certain level into the Schengen system, or maybe involvement of the region in some future European shield. However, the time is now. A decision and actions are needed. EU must deliver this time in order to counter the anti-European moves and actions. EU is playing here on its own field in front of its own audience. It would be truly regrettable and with major consequences not to perform this time, or maybe to surrender the game. Thank you one more time for inviting me. I'm still here open for questions or comments, and thank you for your remarks before me.
Thank you very much indeed. I believe that these proposals will be heard much further from Skopje, and I can recognize a couple of your points that were presented also at a conference in Luxembourg just recently, and I had the pleasure to, as an editor-in-chief, to publish the presentation you had at that conference as well as I will all the very precious presentations here publicized later on our media platform in Macedonian, Albanian, and English language, and certainly will encourage any other media platform to take over to republish this. I'd like to move from Mr. Zaberchanets now to Mr. Mishev, who is a colleague of mine and, of course, a friend and one of those people who were together, where I also was part of them from the first moment, from the first second of the terrible, brutal invasion against Ukraine in the early hours of 24th of February in 2022, and is part of this team that is unfortunately one of the rare ones in the Balkans, in the Western Balkans, that is working day in, day out to identify, expose, and counter disinformation and Russian war propaganda. Dragan Mishev is an editor of the foreign section with the specialized in disinformation and Russian propaganda. So please, Dragan, but be brief, so we can leave some space for Dr. Resman and maybe some questions as well. There you go. The floor is yours, Dragan.
Hello, Javier. Hello, everyone. Dr. Resman, Zaberchanets, Mika, everybody who is online still with us. I'll try to be as short as possible. So, as you mentioned, from very beginning of the mass Russian aggression on the Ukraine, we are battling with Russian disinformation, and I must say that as a journalist and fact checker, countering disinformation and propaganda. Now, these days, one question surfacing these days. How to explain to our audience now who is bad and who is good and who is bad guy? Well, they are listening the Russian propaganda from the mouth of our, until yesterday, greatest ally. We have to, how to explain them this new reality. If we until now have been talking and writing about Russian propaganda that came to the Macedonian media almost exclusively via Belgrade, with the coming of power of Donald Trump in the USA, things have become mixed up and have taken on somehow from the previous point of view. If we watch them from the previous point of view, they become now as unnatural. Now, without any hesitation, Russian propaganda narratives can be conveyed through the statements of high-ranking government officials from yesterday, as I mentioned, from yesterday, main ally, the United States of America. And at the same time, they have an alibi that they are not in conflict with the common interest of our country and at least one, but quite significant part of the allies. So now that classic Russian propaganda hasn't left the region, I will just give an example of how a certain media outlet spread the Russian truth now with manipulative headlines. Like when the Baltic countries decided to completely disconnect themselves from the energy system of the Russia and to symbolically cut the ties with the former Soviet Union and Russia as its successor, this Macedonian media outlet came out with the headline, Russia will disconnect the Baltic countries. Disconnect from its electrical system from tomorrow, like they are punishing them from their not being good friends. I mean, with this, they at least turn the truth upside down and spreading the Russian propaganda narratives. No matter what, Russia wins in the at the end, and the enemies will be punished. So this is something which we are used to until with all these years facing the Russian propaganda in Macedonian media. But now, in addition to this well-known Russian propagandist media, we have on the other side statements which coming from the mouth of Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Secretary of Defense Hexet, which seem to have been written like in Kremlin. Kremlin's top propagandist. The Macedonian media outlet now widely broadcast the analysis and the comments of, I can say now, infamous Jeffrey Sachs and Tucker Carlson, which we already exposed once before, and as an example of the discredited Americans in service of Moscow. So, with the arrival of return of the Donald Trump to the head of the United States, all this now become these unfamous writers and the Russian propagandists became mainstream analysis for transmitting the truth, the Russian truth, the truth of the Russian war in Ukraine, and all of them have a high place in the Macedonia media outlet. Now, the main points of the spread of Russian propaganda in Macedonian media, but also more broadly in the region, are the Russian narrative that emerged from the statement and false accusation of the US president that Ukraine started the war in Ukraine. And especially Trump's statement was, once Trump's statement was shared in the media, when he called Ukrainian President Zelensky as a dictator. For a long time, the defenders of the character and work of the Russian dictator Putin, this came as Trump says once when he meets ace in the sleeve. So now Putin hold the cards, and in the media they proclaiming it as a major victory of the Putin, Trump and Putin. Now it's all mixed up. As you said before, Trumpism, Putinism. So it's all, as I can see, the other point is that now these medias are fortified with the social media bots. Now spreading the Russia truth, copy pasting from the Russian propaganda narrative that Russia did not attack Ukraine. Russia was defending herself from the West, the Anglo-Saxons, and NATO. And if until now, this narrative has always been at the expense of the bad Americans, led by Biden, now we have an unnatural situation in which the previous Putinists and Russians are becoming big Trumpists. And America is suddenly becoming great again, when America is suddenly becoming great again. Now Western Europe and NATO are the arch enemy of the Russian world, and Trump is a good guy. We just need to get the United States off NATO. So now we come to the second point of this new normal of the Russian propaganda, which is the attacks on the US aid. For years, it was torn in the side of Russian dictator, which are now being helping from within with frozen funds, with which Democrat movement and free media, fact checkers, and debunkers of Russian disinformation and malicious Russian narrative have been left with their hands tied and face of the maximally intensified Russian proxy players and pro-Russian. And now also with pro-Russians, now also pro-Trump and pro-MAGA media. And it looks like a real hunt, or rather a witch hunt, is taking place in the media and on social networks. So they exposed the names of the beneficiary of foreign aids from USAID and accused them of malversation and embezzlement of the American taxpayers' money, citing the statement of the First Lady of the United States and Putin megaphone Elon Musk, and almost without exception, such dogged Kremlin narratives are spread by media outlets, reinforced by social media bots, which are directly or indirectly under the umbrella of the ruling party in North Macedonia, which previous prime minister, which is now fugitive in Budapest, are also beneficiary of the USAID funds. So at the end, the truth is once again being manipulated, and the information that the beneficiary of United States of America are not only the government and some of the major of ruling party are also directly using the grants of the USAID. They don't mention it at all. That even it is well known. Even the ruling party itself, when it was in the opposition, was using in 2022 the funds of the USAID. And
thank you for that point.
Yes, at the really end, I must mention now for ourselves that civil media are the target of the false claims of these modern inquisitors. But even after we published the statement that our organization is not and has not been a beneficiary of USA fund, the attack do not stop, making the fight against Russia propaganda and its false narratives and disinformation even more unequal in our surroundings. So,
well, to stay on the positive side, I would like to say that actually the fight is pretty equal, if not even in our on our side. We are prevailing most of the time, regardless of how ridiculous and how poisonous the narratives are there. The attacks on us are actually because we're unveiling, exposing Russian propaganda and the truth about Ukraine, the truth about what is going on in the country within this brutal aggression, about the war crimes, about the genocidal acts, and so on. So the Russian propaganda will find any excuse to attack us based on whatever reason or whatever topic, whatever we say or write. There will be always a group that is our accountants to put some noise in the communication, but I don't think they're very successful, regardless of the fact that they're actually spending money to attack us. And moreover, even with the very serious cyber attack we experienced in this exactly today, because we announced the conference, we're still holding the conference and even running far beyond the agenda and the time, for which I deeply apologize to everyone here. And I would like, Yeah, no, please. So I would like to slowly move towards the end of this great conference, which really filled my mind and my heart, and invite Dr. Wolfgang Ressmann, our great friend, our great colleague, and the leader of a strategically important organization to civil, to make some final notes, and then we can just summarize and close, or just close, because the time has been too long now. Please, Wolfgang, take the floor.
Yeah, it's hard to be the last, but it's a chance too. So let me say I try to say some words on my perspectives after listening to you all. I don't want to repeat the fight against fake news and what we have to do against propaganda, media literacy, and the whole things. I think one thing is important. And that is the things that what we are doing with media dialogue since 10 years, meanwhile, to connect and to bring a base of, to get facts, not only to say that we need facts, also to get facts. And that means also that foreign policy must be more focused by journalists in all of our countries. When Mika says, for example, that we need to bring the people or to take the people with their personal problems, costs of vegetable, costs of renting, and so on, and we have to discuss how it is combined. And when we need information, we need very quick network informations, not only by our organizations, the European journalist organizations, and so on. We need a quick working journalist network in all Europe countries, where trustful journalists are bringing sources which are proved and based on trust, and trust-based trust is also the base of democracy. So it would be very great when we develop this events starting in Skopje, making this event online possible, having the speakers like Ola, like Lina, and so on, bring them together, using their knowledge and bringing their trust also in our media system, and bringing our audience, and even not in the second step, and then the first step, in the head of the journalists all over Europe, and in Germany especially, that there are borders. That there is a world beyond the borders of Germany, for example, which is very, very necessary to know which developments are going on. We have to understand how important Europe development is, the world development is, even for concrete vegetable prices. This is, I think, one of the most important things which we can learn. The time of only looking in the small surrounding is over. This is the view of the right-wing politicians. This is the view not to solve problems, to make problems, not to solve problems, but to use the problems to become in power. And this is, I think, one of the most important things, to inform the audience by trusted sources all over Europe, which are payable to. And if this conference has made some steps in this directions, combined with a concrete analysis and the material which we can publish, it was a great event. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Wolfgang, for these summarized thoughts and bullet pointed practically the whole conference's content although it's rather difficult to really achieve. But then some of the most important points made there were reiterated here at the end of this conference. I would like to just say that we've done a great job together with you and with Roger and with the team of Civil to organize this conference that took a little more than 3 hours, I can see here, with more than 15 people. Almost 20 were confirmed, but then because of technical issues, some of them I could see that they're not being able to connect, but still we will go on. Most of the speeches here will be presented in our media platform, free for any media platform to take over, and we will continue. We will continue with the Defending Democracy initiative. We will continue with publishing the recommendations of the conference last December, but then enriched with these great presentations that we had, great speeches that we had today here, and we hope that each and every one of the people here will redistribute or share these recommendations around the world, and I know we will succeed to make these recommendations, actionable recommendations, land on the tables, on the desks of decision makers. Those that are fighting for democracy will be encouraged, and those that are on the other side of the fences will certainly get the warning from a coming initiative that will help democracy strive and will help Ukraine win and be free, liberate itself from the aggression, liberate its territories, its people, and also to establish long and lasting democracy and peace in the country. It's a European country, and Ukraine will stand, and Ukraine will win. I'm sure, together with us, because if it doesn't, then we all fall. So this is my last thought. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all, dear friends. And my last word here will be Slava Ukraini. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.